Welcome back everybody, I'm Jaran Gerber, your host, and today I'm going to react to a video called Space 1999, 10 Dark Secrets Behind the Most Expensive Sci-Fi Flop. Now for new updates and content you can visit the links in the description down below, and let's get started. Enjoy.
I remember when I was a little girl, I was afraid of the dark.
I see the theory behind your force field. It's very obvious.
If you're careful, you have supplies enough for 5 weeks.
September 13th, 1999. 311 people watch Earth disappear forever. The moon has just been blown out of orbit. No engines, no steering, no rescue coming. Commander Koenig stands at the viewport of Moonbase Alpha, watching his entire world shrink into a distant star. No way home. You remember the Eagle transporters, those beautiful skeletal ships that looked more real than anything in Star Wars. What you probably don't remember is how close this show came to dying long before the moon ever left orbit. Union wars, budget hemorrhages, creative battles, network rejections. Space 1999 survived disasters that would have killed almost any other production. And then, it was quietly executed by something far more dangerous than alien threats. Because this isn't really a story about a drifting moon. It's a story about a show that kept surviving the impossible until the one thing it couldn't survive finally arrived.
All right, Nordstrom. We're watching you closely.
Number 10. The Man Who Dressed the Future, Then Disappeared. The future of Moonbase Alpha wasn't designed by a costume department. It was designed by a fashion revolutionary. Season 1's iconic uniforms came from Austrian designer Rudi Gernreich, a man who had already shocked the world by inventing the monokini and pioneering unisex fashion. He wasn't a TV costumer. He was a cultural disruptor. Barbara Bain personally convinced the producers to let him design the look of the future. The result was unforgettable. Sleek beige jumpsuits with color-coded sleeves. White for medical, dark for command. Clean lines, no rank insignias, no military stiffness. Just a calm, functional future where everyone looked like part of the same fragile human mission. It felt real. It felt modern. It felt expensive. Then Season 2 arrived, and Gernreich was gone. New producers, new direction, new costumes, cheaper fabrics, louder colors, less elegance. The quiet sophistication of Moonbase Alpha vanished almost overnight. Fans noticed immediately. But Gernreich never complained, never issued a statement, never fought for his designs. He simply moved on to his next revolution, leaving Moonbase Alpha behind. And in a strange way, that silent exit mirrored the show's own fate, because the first thing to disappear was the future it had promised.
Steiner, as soon as the ship lifts off, please begin a manual check on that radiation seal.
Number 9. The spacecraft that looked too real to survive. Commander Koenig's Eagle transporter wasn't just a prop, it was a warning sign. Special effects supervisor Brian Johnson didn't design the Eagle like a TV spaceship. He built it like a real one, through full-sized cockpit sets, photographic blow-ups, and meticulously detailed scale models. The modular frame looked less like science fiction and more like something NASA might actually assemble. That realism changed everything. The Eagle didn't feel like fantasy. It felt engineered. Johnson would later win Oscars for Alien and The Empire Strikes Back, the Nostromo shuttle, the Falcon's gritty realism. Those lessons were born here, on a show that couldn't afford them. The models were so precise that some survived decades of conventions. When an Eagle detached its cargo pod mid-flight, audiences believed it completely. And that was the problem, because every second of that realism cost money the production didn't have. Every launch, every landing, Every rotation in space meant more time, more film stock, more miniature work, more budget bleeding into the vacuum. The more real the spacecraft looked, the more unreal the finances became. The Eagle made the show unforgettable, but it also made it dangerously expensive to keep alive. Sometimes the thing that makes you iconic is the same thing that starts draining your oxygen.
Greetings.
Heat level holding, magnetic field fluctuating.
That's what worries me.
Number 8. The director who made perfection too expensive. Most directors ask for one more take. Lee Katzin asked for 40. The respected American filmmaker was hired to direct the pilot episode, Breakaway. His vision was cinematic, meticulous, uncompromising. He didn't want television, he wanted a movie, and he shot it like one. What was supposed to be a 10-day schedule stretched into more than 2 weeks. Katzin demanded take after take, burning through film stock, overtime pay, and the patience of everyone watching the budget collapse. Accountants weren't just worried, they were panicking. He returned once more to direct Black Sun, then was quietly never invited back. Here's the cruel irony. Both of his episodes are now considered among the finest the series ever produced. Gorgeous, atmospheric, unforgettable, exactly what he wanted. But what he wanted was unsustainable. Every frame looked like prestige cinema. Every day of filming looked like a financial disaster. Sometimes excellence and survival don't coexist. Sometimes the thing that gives your show its soul is also the thing that starts digging its grave. And on Space 1999, perfection came with a countdown clock attached.
And suddenly everything went blank for 2 minutes. Just like that.
Number 7. The studio escape that triggered a production war. At one point, Space 1999 wasn't just fighting fictional disasters, it was fighting the British film industry. The production secretly moved from Elstree Studios to Pinewood over a single weekend without notifying the unions. No negotiations, no warnings. Just trucks, sets, and equipment disappearing overnight. The response was immediate. Blacklisting. Crew access tightened. Schedules shrank. Every shooting day became a negotiation with people who suddenly didn't want the show to succeed. Then the real world joined the attack. Britain's 1974 coal crisis triggered rolling power cuts. Entire industries slowed. Pinewood had generators, so cameras kept rolling, but film processing happened off-site at labs without backup power. So finished footage just sat there, waiting. Scenes couldn't be developed, episodes couldn't be assembled, deadlines kept closing in. A show about survival suddenly needed survival tactics just to finish an episode. The moon wasn't the only thing drifting without ground control. The production was too. And the next crisis didn't come from unions or power grids. It came from the show's own origin.
I see the theory behind your force field. Very obvious.
Number 6. The series that only existed because someone said no. Space 1999 was born from a rejection. Jerry Anderson originally planned to continue UFO, simply moving the timeline forward and expanding the moonbase setting. Network executive Abe Mandel refused. New material, he said, couldn't be set on Earth. Audiences wanted pure escapism. So Anderson countered, "Fine, I'll blow up the Earth." Mandel objected, so Anderson tried again. "Then I'll blow up the moon." That compromise became the entire premise, a runaway moon, 300 survivors, no engines, no rescue, no way home. The series only existed because one executive said no, and the creator had to think bigger. But that choice carried a hidden cost. If your story begins with total catastrophe, how do you escalate from there? And how long can a production built on that level of ambition survive? Because ambition is expensive, and this one cost more than British television had ever risked.
Area 1 burnt itself out in a magnetic subsurface firestorm.
Number 5. The £6 million gamble. £6 million. In the 1970s, that made Space 1999 the most expensive British TV series ever produced. Everything was built around one plan: sell the show to American network television. Producers cast Emmy winners Martin Landau and Barbara Bain to attract CBS. The budget, the sets, the scale, everything was designed for US approval. CBS passed. They chose Planet of the Apes instead. The biggest budget in British TV history, and no network buyer. With no national deal, the show survived through scattered syndication across America. Different cities aired different episodes at different times. No unified launch, No safety net. But the money was already spent. The sets were built. The contracts were signed. There was no turning back. Space 1999 wasn't just a science fiction series anymore. It was a £6 million gamble drifting through space, hoping someone would decide it was worth saving.
A reprieve.
But for how long?
Number 4. The wormholes that turned survival into a lottery. Critics quickly noticed the problem. A drifting moon couldn't possibly reach alien civilizations within a human lifetime. The distances were simply too vast. Even at impossible speeds, the math didn't work. So the writers introduced something far more unsettling than fast travel: space warps. Early in the journey, the moon passed through a black hole. After that, strange distortions began appearing. Violent gravitational corridors that could fling the entire moon across light years in seconds. These weren't convenient shortcuts. They were cosmic roulette wheels. Every time a warp appeared, the Alphans had no idea where they'd emerge. A paradise, a nightmare, or total annihilation. Each episode became a lottery ticket written in vacuum and radiation. The universe wasn't just hostile, it was unpredictable. And if these jumps weren't random, then something might be guiding them. Which leads to the most disturbing idea the show ever suggested.
I remember when I was a little girl, I was afraid of the dark.
Number 3. The force that might have been steering everything. Season 1 quietly planted a terrifying possibility. The moon might not have been drifting at all. Several episodes hinted at a mysterious intelligence influencing its path, an unseen force pushing the Alphans toward encounters that seemed statistically impossible. Habitable planets, critical crises, moments where human choices changed entire worlds. The odds of these events lining up were astronomical, unless they weren't accidents, unless the moon had a destination. Divine plan, alien experiment, cosmic manipulation. The show never answered, but the implication was chilling. The Alphans weren't explorers. They were cargo. Passengers on a journey designed by something that never asked their permission. And that journey began with the single worst decision humanity ever made.
Thank you. But there's really nothing more you can do.
Number 2. The disaster that turned the moon into a coffin. September 13th, 1999. Humanity's greatest mistake detonated on the far side of the moon. For decades, nuclear waste had been buried there. Out of sight, out of mind. The perfect place to hide a problem that would remain lethal for thousands of years. Then, magnetic radiation triggered a catastrophic chain reaction. The explosion blasted the moon completely out of Earth's orbit. 311 people at Moonbase Alpha suddenly became passengers on an uncontrolled spacecraft the size of a planet. No engines, no steering, no rescue coming. Every episode became a search for a new home. Every decision carried the weight of the entire human race. It was one of the bleakest premises ever put on television. But here's the truth the series never told you. The greatest threat to Moonbase Alpha was never space.
The same point that prevents you from giving up on a patient until he's dead.
Number 1. The enemy that finally killed the show. After everything it survived, Space 1999 didn't die in space. It died in a boardroom. According to Martin Landau, the ratings weren't catastrophic when cancellation came. Syndication numbers were solid. Fan response was strong. There were plans for a shorter third season, even a Maya spin-off. The show had already survived union blacklists, power crises, budget overruns, network rejection. It kept drifting forward, just like the moon itself. Then financier Lou Grade made a decision. He wanted movies instead of television, so he redirected the show's budget into theatrical projects. The biggest one was Raise the Titanic, a film that became one of the most infamous financial disasters in cinema history. Grade later joked it would have been cheaper to actually raise the real Titanic. Space 1999 was canceled to fund a movie that sank. The Alphans never found a home. The audience never got closure. The journey simply stopped. Not because the story ended, not because viewers left, because someone in a suit decided the numbers didn't work. The series about humanity drifting through a hostile universe didn't die from alien threats or cosmic forces or nuclear disasters. It died from accounting.
If you're careful, you have supplies.
Everybody says that season 1's the best.
Bonus fact: the crew that quietly stopped existing. Watch season 2 carefully. Notice the silence. Professor Bergman, Paul Morrow, David Kano, Tanya Alexander. Core members of Moonbase Alpha, familiar faces in the control room. People who shared meals, crises, and near-death experiences with the rest of the crew. Then suddenly, they're gone. No funerals, no transfers, no heroic last missions, no goodbye scenes. They simply stop existing between seasons, and the show never acknowledges it. Not once. Not a single line of dialogue. Professor Bergman vanished after salary disputes. The others were casualties of the new producer's tighter budget. Half the supporting cast erased with no explanation. Imagine living on a drifting moon, surrounded by the same 300 people every day, and then one morning, 4 of them are just gone. No memorial, no investigation, no one even says their names again. Fans spent years trying to fill the silence. Maybe they died off screen, maybe a space warp separated them. Maybe they're still out there, waiting for a rescue that will never come. But the truth was far less dramatic. They didn't die in space, they died in budget meetings. And like so many things in space, 1999, they disappeared without closure.
If you're careful, you have supplies enough for 5 weeks.
The same point that prevents you from giving up on a patient until he's dead.
Thank you. But there's really nothing more you can do.
A reprieve.
But for how long?
So that was Space 1999, 10 Dark Secrets Behind the Most Expensive Sci-Fi Flop. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yo, those uniforms, the spacecraft, the attention to detail which made season 1 so good is fantastic. But you know, the network executives always want to go the cheaper route, and that is why the show failed. Season 2 is, according to many people, is a joke. That is why season 1 has such a dark tone with good stories in it. I haven't watched the series yet, and I'm going to, and I'm so looking forward to it. And a word of wisdom for today. Always think above and beyond, and never settle for less. Have a blessed day further, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.